Hello, my name is Jesse Rosenberg, and I will be moderating this seminar today. If you have any questions, please place them in the chat box on the bottom right so that they can be answered when it is time. After the workshop, please fill out the survey, which will be sent to your email to let us know what you thought of the presentation. Tonight's presenter is Carol Kivler. Carol is president of Kivler Communications, a corporate training and international executive coaching firm. Since 1994, Carol has served over 100 companies around the country and has coached over 1,800 executives worldwide. Carol shares her lived experiences and advocates for those challenged by depression and anxiety. She has been in sustained recovery for the past 18 years. Carol was a member of the NAMI Mercer Board of 10 years. Carol received her bachelor's degree in business education from the College of New Jersey and her master's degree in human resource education from Fordham University in New York and has authored 4 books. Carol is the proud mother of three and loving Grammy of 7, 6 grandsons and 1 princess. Let's welcome Carol to the seminar.
Thanks, Jesse. And it's a pleasure to be here. I just have one thing before I get started. I can't see the chat box. So how do I get to that? Because I got to be able to see a chat box. I see it right here. Okay. I need to move that over there. Oh my gosh. Oh, all right. All right. If you'll go to the next slide, I can't see the chat box, Jesse.
Carol, on the bottom of your screen, there's
Yeah.
a chat icon and the word chat. If you click on that, it'll open up the chat box. For
I
you.
did, but it's in the middle of my screen now.
I'll just slide it over by grabbing it at the top.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right. Okay, I've got somebody saying there's no sound in the chat box. I can hear you. Okay. All right. All right. Well, first of all, welcome to Harvest of Hope, our virtual presentations. If you haven't already, please mute your telephone. Put any questions as they come up in the chat box, but I'm going to be answering questions at the very end. So let's jump into what this workshop is all about. Next slide, please. We're going to be talking about tender self-compassion and its role in your total well-being. We're going to also discuss the keys that can unlock the capacity for self-compassion. We're going to review the 3 components to build self-compassion in your life: kindness, common humanity, and mindfulness. And finally, we'll recognize ways to incorporate self-compassion in just a few minutes each day, either in the morning or even in the evening. So we're going to start out with an exercise just to get you in a better frame of mind. So if you'll move to the next screen. This is called a tender self-compassion break. And so what I'd like you to do is, if you're seated, to just sit back comfortably. And if you prefer to stand, please stand at this moment. And we're going to practice, and you would do this exercise whenever you need acceptance or support of yourself in your daily life. It's like hitting a reset button on the computer, taking a needed pause when you're struggling so you can recenter. So here's what we're going to do. The first thing that we're going to do is I want you to think of a situation over the last day or a couple of days that caused you a little bit of stress. For me, I'm having a little bit of stress right now with the technology. Call that situation to your mind and see if you can feel the stress and the emotional discomfort in your body. So sit back for a second, think about that situation, and think about what was happening in your body right then and there. You might notice that you might be feeling anxious or overwhelmed or confused. Maybe your heart is racing. Maybe your mouth is dry. And I want you to recognize and accept this moment that it might be a little uncomfortable in the moment. So I want you to think and say out loud, this hurts. I feel stressed. This is an ouch right now. And hold that thought for a minute. Next, I want you to embrace yourself with kindness and care in response to this uncomfortable feeling by connecting with the common humanity. And say to yourself, you know, I'm not perfect. I'm human. And sometimes suffering happens. But other people also feel this way. I'm not alone. We all struggle at times in our life or uncomfortable. And sit with that for a second. Now put your hands over your heart. Feel the warmth of your body and your hands and the gentle touch of your hands on your chest. Now say to yourself, may I be kind to myself. May I learn to accept myself as I am. May I be strong and courageous in this moment. This is a practice that you can use day or night that will help you remember to come to the three most important parts of self-compassion when you need it most: kindness, humanity, humanity, and mindfulness. Doing this allows ourselves to feel love, giving ourselves the support and comfort needed to bear the pain while providing the optimal conditions for both growth and transformation. So let's delve into what self-compassion really is. Next slide. Here's the definition of compassion, tender self-compassion. And I'd like you to read it alongside with me out loud, because when you use more than one of your learning modalities, it sticks a little bit more. So say it out loud as I do. Tender self-compassion is the capacity that allows us to be with ourselves just as we are, comforting and reassuring ourselves that we are not alone, as well as validating our pain. It has the gentle nurturing quality of a mother toward a newborn child. You love that child unconditionally. Self-compassion is a practice of goodwill, not of a good feeling. And so I think you can see me right now, but self-compassion is being taught. It's coming up in magazines. It's coming up in books. We're seeing it more and more. So I don't know if you can see this. I'm going to put this in here. But when Maddie asked me to talk about self-compassion, it was interesting because two of the magazines that I receive on a monthly basis had self-compassion on the front cover. This is the magazine Mindful, and self-compassion was one of the most important articles. And then in the magazine Spirituality and Health, it says right on here, your secret power, forget about self-esteem. Self-compassion is more effective and sustainable. So we're seeing this topic coming up more and more over self-esteem. We want people to really be compassionate to themselves, treating themselves as they would treat a best friend. Many of us are harder on ourselves than anyone else is on us. And when you're able to practice self-compassion, you enhance your well-being by transforming negative situations and experiences into positive ones. Next slide, please. So as I said earlier, there are 3 components to self-compassion: kindness, common humanity, and mindfulness. When we talk about kindness, it's how do you treat yourself? Do you treat yourself as a good friend? When we talk about common humanity, knowing that we're not alone in our experiences, that pain is part of life. And when we think about mindfulness, it's being fully present in whom you are in all circumstances. So let's delve into kindness first. Next slide. So in the chat room, I want you to tell me, how do you show your kindness to yourself? What are some of the things you do? So type it in there, and so that I can see it in the chat room. And let me see what some of you do. I'm not seeing any chats here. Okay, so I'm seeing, I buy myself a couple of drinks. I personally listen to music. I take a walk. I treat myself to something. I do not tend to give myself the advice I would give a friend. It does help. I give myself, okay, a meditation, a massage, a hot bath. I speak, I read a book, I get a massage. I speak positive affirmations. So these are all very good techniques for you to do for yourself. For me, I forgive myself if I make a mistake. This past week, I went to a baby shower and I helped set up the baby shower. And 5 minutes into the baby shower, I went under the table to look for something, and I knocked over a whole big glass full of orange juice. And instead of going into a panic and saying, "You clumsy person," I just said to myself, "Okay, Carol, you it was an accident. You didn't do it on purpose. Forgive yourself and move on." So if we just stop in the moment to give ourselves a little kindness when we're having a hard time, we get a very, very different outcome. So when we talk about kindness, we have to talk about the next slide and that word on the next slide, which is love. The element of kindness at the core of self-compassion takes on a loving quality when our need is to be with ourselves as we are. When we open our hearts, love comes in and old pain goes out. When we give ourselves unconditional love, we discover the conditions under which we were unloved. So what I'd like you each to do in the moment, and I don't know if you've ever done this before, and I've done this a lot during the pandemic because of the isolation, is I give myself a big hug in the morning and before I go to bed. So I want you to wrap your arms around yourself, and give yourself a big hug. And if you're comfortable, say, "I love you," and then repeat your name. Or you can say, "I love me." All right. One of the most important things is that if we want to have more self-compassion, We need to be sure that not only are we loving ourselves, but that we're kind and gentle and comforting to ourselves. Another strategy to bring kindness into your life, if you go to the next slide, is positive self-talk. You know, how do you speak to yourself? What's your tone of voice like? What kind of words do you call yourself? So let's look at the next slide and see how positive self-talk works. I've talked a little bit about your tone of voice. Do you raise your tone when you get angry with yourself? Do you find empowering words like, you can handle this, I'm intelligent, I can do this, I'm brave, I'm courageous, I'm capable, I am? So what kind of empowering words do you do to talk to yourself? Because the words that we use and talk to ourselves become a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so if I tell myself I can't do this, I've already made a decision in my mind that I'm not capable. So let me see in the chat book, what kinds of empowering words you say to yourself. Someone said they give themselves some positive affirmations. What are you saying to yourself? Ah, this one says, it's okay. What else? I'm enough. Wonderful. I'm enough. I am capable. You've got this. Oh, I like that. You've got this. I can get through this. Wonderful. Very empowering words. And those empowering words build our compassion. This too shall pass. I can try. Instead of saying I can try, I would like this for you to say, I will do my best, because nobody can ask you to do anything more than your best. I can and I will. Very powerful. Those powerful words, things like moving from I hope, say I trust this will happen, instead I hope this will happen. Yeah. So that positive. So I want you to think tomorrow, catch yourself in the moment. When something happens that's a little circumstances that is out of your control, what do you say to yourself in the moment? If you're trying to do something that's a little challenging, how are you prompting yourself and building yourself up to get through what it is that you want to do and get through and do what you choose so you can achieve something? Another thing is with positive self-talk is when the negative thoughts and judgments of yourself start coming in, tell them to take a hike. Or I like to say, when I find myself talking negatively to me, or judging myself, I will many times will say, knock it off, Carol. And so what it is you hold yourself accountable and catch yourself in the moment, so that you're not feeding your mind information or words that will be detrimental to what you want to achieve, but will be helpful to what it is that you want to achieve. So think about your self-talk. And at the end of each day, do a little debrief. So how was I today when it comes to being compassionate to myself and kind to myself with the words that I'm using? Okay. Moving on, we're going to now talk about connecting to humanity. We are not alone. That's the bottom line. The more that you can connect to the world around you and the people around you, the more powerful you become, because the sense of common humanity, it's inherent to tender self-compassion because it generates feelings of connectiveness when we turn towards our pain. When we remember that hardship and feelings of inadequacy or something we all share, we don't feel so isolated. I want to talk to you about something that happened to me just yesterday. Something that happened to me yesterday. I went to get a flu shot, and it was going to take a little while. So they said, well, come back in about 45 minutes. And I was in Stop and Shop in Pennington. And I left Stop and Shop and I walked to the local pizzeria in the same shopping center. And I walked in, and lo and behold, there was one of my neighbors who I haven't seen since the pandemic started. And so she was sitting there by herself having pizza. And I said, would you like to share a table? And she said, oh, I would love that. So we sat down, and we started a conversation as we enjoyed lunch together. And the conversation led to a real deep, intimate connection with each other. Um, I had mentioned something about my mental health speaking, and all of a sudden, she opened up and said, it's very interesting that you're here in this exact moment, and we're talking about mental wellness, because my daughter is going through some pretty hefty things. And she went into some very, very detailed behaviors that were happening with her daughter. And at the end of our conversation, she literally said to me, Carol, I feel so much better by talking to you and realizing, because I could actually relate to what she was talking about, not only from my own mental health experience, but also from that of my son, my youngest son, and also my oldest grandson. And so we were able to connect on a level that we have never connected on, but we both left feeling so much better because I showed empathy to her, and she was able to connect and realize she wasn't the only one that's going through something like this. Because how many of us think everyone else's life is so much easier than our life until we really take off the masks that we wear and we become our true self and share the hurts and the burdens that we too carry. And all of a sudden, there's a unified connection that we're not alone and that others walk the same paths we've walked in life. And just knowing that puts us in a different place of common humanity. So on the next slide, I have a question here because I want to talk to you, ask the question about how disapproving and judgmental are you with your own flaws and inadequacy? And I know that I want you to think of, generally speaking, are you more disapproving, generally speaking, or less? So I'm gonna put something in here and say, okay, how about you? What do we have? True, I'm disapproving, sure, and judgmental. I'm getting better at this. Wonderful. Good for you. True. Mhm. Acknowledge true. Acknowledgement is the first true. Acknowledgement is the first step to self-improvement. True often think I can be better than I think I am. Yes, but sometimes I work on a daily true. Yeah. You see, we have more truths than we do false. I am hard on myself. Yeah. Sometimes we are our own worst enemy. And as I said, unfortunately, we compare ourselves with others and we think everybody else has everything put together. And I'm just hanging on by the thread in life. And so I want you to really, when you start to open up a little bit more intimately with people and you start really, when you feel comfortable enough with someone and you trust someone, for you to see that we all struggle at some time with the same kinds of things. Um, there was I had the wonderful opportunity to go to Kenya in Africa on a missions trip. And we were doing some door to door, going around door to door and asking people if we could pray for them. And it, I had an interpreter with me the whole time. And when I would ask the mothers as I sat in their little homes, what would you like for me to pray for you? And it absolutely blew my mind that what they asked for me to pray for them was the exact same thing that I often pray, not only for others, but for myself. Pray for the safety of my children. Pray that my husband gets a better job. Pray that I'm able to feed my children. Pray that my children can stay in school. Pray that my children will be safe and at peace. So the more that we connect with other people and realize that we are one and the same, all of us, because we are human beings, and human beings struggle and they suffer, they succeed, and they're imperfect. So connecting on a level of common humanity really brings self-compassion forward to yourself, because you don't feel so isolated and alone and alone. So let's see some of the things that we do. So on the next slide, I want to talk about seeking support. But before I go into how I'd like to share seeking support, I'd like to hear how you seek support. So in the chat room, how are you seeking support? With whom are you seeking support? So let's see some ideas that are coming through, some strategies that you find yourself using. Here's I call a friend. Excellent. I talk often with my sister, friends, my pastor. Mhm. Anyone else? Friends, a counselor. Absolutely. I talk to my cousin. Mhm. I phone my peer coach. Wonderful. I call Carol. I'm fortunate to have a lot of mental health people in my workplace and circle of friends. You are fortunate, Josh, especially in your workplace. So good for you. A 12-step group, a church, a support group, friends. Each one of these are awesome, awesome ways to connect with people and to get the support that you need in the moment. In the moment. Good for you. For me, I'm very fortunate that I have two friends that are counselors, or they're therapists. And so they're usually my first call. If I can't get one, I can usually get the other. Um, but it's because A, I trust them. B, that I know that they're going to be there, not judge me, accept me where I am. No different than when I first found NAMI, and I'm sure that many of you on this call feel very similarly to how I felt when I felt NAMI. I felt like I found my peeps. They didn't judge me. They accepted me. um, and they opened their arms to bringing me into the fold of what NAMI does best, and that is to love on me. They loved on me, which was what's not only comforting, but it was empowering. It was empowering. So um, I read, I Google. Okay, so Google for support. Good. Okay, good. All right, so let's see the kinds of things that I've come up with here on the next slide. Oh, so the first thing is, to literally say out loud to yourself and I want you to all say it to yourself right now as I say it. I am not alone. Other people have experienced this as well. Okay. So that might be something you want to jot down. I am not alone. Other people have experienced this as well. Mhm. Interesting. The second one is that talk to a trusted friend, and we had many people put friends up there and cousins and other things. Excuse me, joining any kind of a support group. I had somebody say a 12-step group, a church, which is can be a very much a support group. And remember, kintsugi. Anybody know what that word kintsugi is? It's a Japanese word. Does anybody have any idea what that word means? I say, I have a no here. I think repair clay. Very, very close, Carol. Good for you. I think repair clay. No. Okay. Or pottery. Okay. Good. All right. Well, let's look on the next slide and we'll see what it is, because it's a Japanese way of taking a bowl and actually as if it's broken, repairing it with gold. It's the art of repairing pottery with silver or gold, lacquer, and understanding that the piece is more beautiful for having been broken. You see, we're broken people and wounded people. And sometimes, I don't know about you, but I know really when I first was diagnosed with a major depressive disorder, and I was hospitalized, I remember feeling damaged goods. I remember feeling like almost like Humpty Dumpty, who sat on the wall, and had a great fall and just cracked up and just completely cracked my life apart by leaving my family, by having to be hospitalized for as long as I had. And I remember thinking, I was pretty damaged material as a human being for what I had been through. But when we look at kintsugi, it's really a metaphor for embracing your flaws and imperfections. When you look at that bowl, and it has the cracks, but it's all put back together, and it's in Japan, they think that's even a more beautiful bowl than it was prior to this. So when you are thinking about yourself, we're all unique and special, and our imperfections is what makes us unique and special. So so I want you to think, with all the things that you've been through and all the imperfections that we have as a human being, okay, what's one thing you think about yourself, or how you think about yourself in the moment, that you're this unique and special person because of everything that you've been through? So in your mind, how do you look at yourself? How do you look at yourself? Let me put something in the chat box to tell. on how you view yourself. It says, I am, yeah. Mhm. Yeah, I'm much more empathetic than I was before I suffered from depression. Good for you, Maddie. I feel the same way, if you can see what I just wrote there. I'm in a healing stage of my life, and I am now trying to help others 100%, because when you've been through something and you have those experiences that you can share with others, it literally brings hope to others that you made it to the other side of whatever that you went through. Maybe I can too. Maybe I can too. So thank you for sharing. Yeah, thank you. Now, before I go on to the final component of self-compassion, we've gone over kindness and common humanity. What questions would you have on either one of those components? Oh, I love the last comment that we had. I can repair my broken heart by repairing it with gold, by serving others and making them happy. Oh, that's beautiful, Guru. Okay. Well, no questions are coming up yet, so that's good. And so let's go on to the next component, and that has to do with mindfulness. And so I want to talk about mindfulness being the most important part of self-compassion, because it all starts with mindfulness, that you need to be present to what's happening, because it says mindfulness is the key, is central to self-compassion and provides the awareness needed to be with ourselves as we are and to validate our pain. You know, it's a balanced state that steers clear of two common reactions to suffering. Okay. Avoidance and over-identification. This involves something called being a participant/observer to your life. As a participant, it's you that's experiencing the present moment. The observer that you can be allows you to take a balcony view of what's happening from a neutral perspective, just seeing things as they are. And the key words here are, don't practice avoidance, because if you avoid something, it's only going to come back to get you. All right. You can only push things down so long before they bubble up again and almost strangle you unless you deal with what's going over. The other one is over identification. And that is feeling, when that's how you identify yourself. When I think about this, it goes back to a time where I was coming into support groups after one of my hospitalizations. And and people, as they were introducing themselves in the support group, that I was actually leading, people would identify themselves. Hi, I'm Carol and I have OCD. Hi, I'm Jeffrey and I have um, bipolar disorder. Hi, I'm Jennifer and I have major depressive disorder and general anxiety disorder. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, they are identifying themselves by their challenges. And so I stopped the group. I had like 3 or 4 introduce themselves, and I said, okay, now I want you to introduce yourself by telling me something that makes you smile about yourself. And so now it was, hi, I'm Jesse, and I ride a motorcycle. Hi, I'm Jennifer, and I love playing the piano. Hi, I'm George, and um, I love to go out in nature and just soak up the environment. Well, the whole environment changed in seconds when people started talking about more than how they identified themselves. So mindfulness is really watching, are you avoiding something in the moment and pressing it down, or are you over identifying with that? Which now has my next question. And my next question is on the next slide. And that slide talks about when I'm feeling down, I try to approach my feelings with curiosity and openness. Huh. So let's see. Do you give yourself an A, a B, or a C here? I'm going to say this. Okay, I've got lots of B's, which is awesome. I got lots of B's. I've got a C. Good. Okay. B. B. All right. Okay. Okay. Good. All right. Well, that being curious and openness is trying to find out in the moment how we're feeling how we feel in the moment, and a lot of that has to do with um, how can you even identify the feelings that you're feeling, because most of us use words like repress my feelings, but I'm working on feeling them. Good. We say things like, oh my gosh, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm lonely, I'm calm, instead of using, there's so many words to describe our feelings. And there's a book right now out there that I've read, and I don't know if you can see it, but I'm putting it up here. And it's called Permission to Feel. And in this book, in the inner section of the book, the author listed all of the feelings, the 4 major feelings of being angry or sad or happy or calm, but he gave a whole bunch of adjectives on exactly how you're feeling. And so the more you can connect to uh, things like I'm frustrated, or I'm excited or energized, or I feel grateful, or I feel discouraged or disappointed, or I feel lonely, or the more you can to identify the exact feeling rather just the ones that say I'm sad, I'm sad, I'm happy. The more that you can identify, the deeper you can get, the more you get to know yourself. And we go through so many feelings. And what's most interesting is 2 people can have the same experience, yet feel completely different about what's happening. So the more when something is going on with you, as we did when we first started the session with the tender self-compassion break, where I had you go into a situation where you were stressed, and I asked you, like, how were you feeling? I want you to go back in there and what was happening to your body during those feelings. The more mindful you can be when you're looking at yourself, the more present you are in the moment, which gives you a very different level of mindfulness. When it comes to mindfulness, it's being in the present moment, and many of us have a really hard time to just be in the present moment. In the present moment. So let's go to my strategy that I came up with when it comes to mindfulness, and then that is the next play, and that is practicing emotional resilience. Acknowledging that I'm struggling, that is the first step towards healing. We let go of resistance and we move towards acknowledgement. And we've got to acknowledge, to acknowledge what's happening in the moment for you to be able to move on from that. So how, when I want you to think of what do you do, what do you, how do you acknowledge some of your feelings? What do you specifically, um, what do you do? How do you personally, how do you come up with what's happening with you? What do you have to do first? And I will tell you that I need to, when I feel like I am really getting, pause, um, take a breath, and inward. I've got to slow down to be in touch. Identify them. Pause, take a breath, and look inward. Okay, and look inward. Yeah. We're a human being, not a human doing. And sometimes we need to be, and when you stop doing and just be, you get to a different level of what's going on with you in the moment. What's going on in the moment. So if we move to the next slide, we'll see what some of those things are. So look in here. Some of these we've already identified through your comments. Listening to the internal world. That's for me. I got to pause and just go inward. What's going on with me right now? What's making my mind wander? What am I thinking? And noticing the emotions, especially the real strong emotions that you have. For some people, they blow up. You either blow up or you clam up many times. So what you've got to recognize is to let me just label what I'm feeling in the moment, because you've got, in order to tame it, you've got to identify it in order to tame the emotion. And once you name it, you can tame it so you can reframe it. I love that. You name it, you tame it so you can reframe it. And that makes a real big difference, which you also want to counteract shame, because many times we shame ourselves. We should have, we could have, we would have. Stop shooting on yourself. All right. Because life is a challenge. And then finally, I want you to watch for the paradox. And the paradox is a statement that counteracts itself. And if you go to the next slide, Jess, you'll see my definition where it says we give ourselves compassion, not to feel better, but because we feel bad. So they really contradict themselves. Or they must be both true and untrue at the same time. So things like youth is wasted on the young is a paradox, or less is more. That's a paradox. Or you're damned if you do or damned if you don't. That's a paradox. So So if you feel overwhelmed, if you're feeling overwhelmed by difficult emotions, the most self-compassionate thing you can do is to focus on your breath and the sensation of the soles of your feet on the ground. Or have a cup of tea if that's it, or pet one of your petting one of your pets. By doing so, you're reinforcing the habit of self-compassion, giving yourself what you need in the moment. What you need in the moment. Mhm. Okay. All right. So mindfulness, we've got to stay in the moment so that we can be and hold and grab a hold of the self-compassion that we look for through kindness and common humility. So if you'll go to the next slide, I want you to set some actions here, some steps. So what are some things that you can do? I want you to select one of these three components. And we've talked about a lot of things, people shared a lot of things that they do. What's one step that you want to do? Pick one of the components and commit to something you can do, either to be kind to yourself, to practice common humanity, or to be more mindful. What's one thing you can do different that you haven't done? So let's write them down and see what we come up with here. I'm gonna Notice when I'm having negative self-thoughts and reframe to something positive. Wonderful, Karen. Good for you. Good for you. Determine what things might be causing a certain emotion or feeling. Excellent, Anne. Excellent. I will name it, to tame it, to reframe it. Good for you. I'm glad you like that little, those three little rhymes that will help you remember to just do that. Mhm. When I did the research for this program, I really felt that one of the things that I needed to do um, at times was really, I will build time in for self-care into my daily schedule. Good for you, Maddie. Yeah, I wrote down, I didn't hit it yet. I'll slow down when I feel out of sorts and take time to be. Hmm. Yeah, yeah. So good. Here's, I'll listen to people neutrally. Without judgment. Good for you. Yeah. You know, we don't know, everyone has a story. We don't ever know what they're going through in the moment. But sometimes if we just listen without judgment, we can connect with people at a different level. Daily exercise and meditation at the beginning of a day. Yeah, good, good. All good first steps. Um, if you're like me, when I am a firm believer that knowledge is not power, it's potential. And in order for it to become power, you need to use it or you lose it. So you want to, if you can, tomorrow, take one of these steps, these action steps, and give yourself a pat on the back, you know, when you actually follow through with the action steps that you've committed to in the chat box, which will make a big difference. If you'll move to the next slide, I just want to go over, I just want to tell you that this is Mental Health Month, and we're coming to the end of that month and the end of Harvest of Hope. And because I have spoken for the last 18 years in the mental health field, And I have felt both honor and privilege to be able to go in front of so many audiences over the last 18 years that I am, over this month, I am gifting people at the end of my sessions one of my books for free. And all you need to do after the workshop is over, if you would send an email, and it's at the bottom where it says carol@carolkivler.com. If you would send an email with your name, your address, and the book that you would like, one of these three, I will be happy to not only pay for the book, but I will pay for the postage to mail the book to you. And it's my way of saying thank you to NAMI for accepting me and loving me the way that you have over these last 18 years. And it's a way for me to share some of the lessons I've learned through the experience, my lived experience, and to give to others, which in essence will give to me as well. So it has been an absolute pleasure to spend a little bit of time with you on tender self-compassion. And so I want to conclude by going back to that first exercise that we had, where I want you to think about a something difficult, and I want you to literally use the same kinds of things that we did with what's just, what am I feeling at the moment? And I want you to just notice how you're feeling. What is it doing to your body? And then to literally say, gosh, that hurt, that hurt, or that was stress. And then I want you to just embrace yourself with kindness and let yourself say, others feel this way. I'm not alone. We all have struggles in our lives. And then put the hands over your heart and feel that tenderness and that warmth and say to yourself, may I be kind to myself. May I forgive myself. May I be strong, or may I be courageous, and may I love myself. I want to thank you for staying with me, and I want you to raise your hand, and I want you to pat yourself on the back because you opened up yourself and shared so many wonderful things on the chat box. And we've got Janet coming on, and you want to say something, Janet?
Just want to thank you, Carol, because we are so very, very grateful for you and to you. So thank you very, very much.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Yes, thank you, Carol. It was fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Jess. I appreciate it. Thank you. Well, everybody have a safe night. Stay safe and live well. Live well. Bye.
Bye, Carol. Thank you.
Good night.
You're welcome. Good night.